anymore. So that's usually what I grab if I'm going to have something bubbly.
This is my
Now
big
that I have it out.
because I love, I don't know if you can see it says, I love grandma. So
I do wine glasses with a lot, like I'll put my tea in that so that I feel like I'm drinking, because it's a lot of times it's red, so it looks like wine. So, but I do have wine, but usually with water. I mix it actually with water because number one, it's a fruit. And number two, I'm cutting the sugar so a little bit, you know, by adding the water, because I'm only using the wine just for the color, and it's mostly, but it's a little bit of alcohol.
okay, so let's rein it in for Crissy so that she has her special minutes here to present effective communication for business success.
Yes, wonderful. Is there a message here in the chat? Did I miss something? Okay.
No, just another
Angry
great drink.
Jason ginger ale.
One of my
Oh,
favorite
so
foods.
yum.
Yeah.
Yum, yum, yum. Awesome. Well, good morning, ladies. Thank you so much for this opportunity to have this conversation today. I'm totally open to it being, you know, interactive, and especially since we all really know one another. And I feel I'm so passionate when it comes to communication. I'm totally, I don't know if you would say obsessed with it, but I'm always watching how people communicate and always looking at conflicts and disruptions that happen and seeing how more effective communication could lead to better resolution. And I am 100% convinced, since diving deep into communication and connecting with other people, that there is not a single conflict that is out there in the world, in our personal lives or in our business lives, that cannot be resolved without further effective communication. So I feel like this is such a powerful topic that you could take into your personal life. Hey, Anna, glad you're here with us, sweetie. That you can take back into your personal life. And we're going to talk about how we can bring this over into our business world as well. One thing that I have found with a focus of helping business women understand the body and mind spirit connection and how that affects the bottom line in your business, is that how you show up in your personal life is probably very similar to how you show up in your business life, and especially when it comes to something as personal as the way that you communicate. So it is, if I can get my little slides moving here, it's my intention to share with you throughout this presentation an insightful, I'm sorry, I've got to move my little screen here. I can't see my words. An insightful perspective for you to take into your conversations with others that will allow you to increase your overall confidence in dealing with any situation and to relax into confronting conversations. That is something that happens as business owners, be it a conversation about, do you want to get started and make this investment today? Or if you know that something isn't quite going right with a customer or client, or if you get negative feedback back, so many ways that you can have your confidence kind of shook up and want to shy away from communication, or feel very anxious about communicating with that client or potential client, or even, you know, business partner or family member. Maybe that's where the communication needs to kind of step up a notch. But my intention is to help you to increase your overall confidence and relax into confronting conversations. This increased confidence will better ensure a consistent understanding and conflict resolution, no matter who it is that you're dealing with. And by the end of our time together, I will help you to discover the 3 keys, what I consider to be the 3 keys to effective communication that you can further integrate and refine throughout your personal and your professional journey. So like you, our world experience is an evolution. And I look at evolving your communication as just bringing forth the next evolution of yourself so you can experience the next evolution of others as well, which ultimately is going to change the way that you experience life around you. And I know that we all know each other, but here's just some highlights about me. I know that some of us haven't connected in a while, and you know, you don't always get all the background stuff. So I have been a business owner since December of 2006. I have consistently created a full-time income working part-time hours during that time. And since February of 2019, I've been the sole income provider for my household. I've built my business both online and in person. I found that traditional approaches to business building just didn't bring the results that I saw other people getting. So I found another way that works, and it helped me to double my monthly income 3 separate times, which is really just I think, a testimony to how simple and effective and easy to integrate the approach that I take to business is. And this aligned approach, it allows for continued growth so that you can leverage your business and your results. And I believe that business success is inevitable whenever you're aligned. And that means aligning your thoughts with your beliefs, your words, and your actions. When those are all congruent, typically as a natural side effect, you experience much more flow. So the first key in communication is to start with the facts. Simple place to start with the facts. Now, why do we start with the facts? Because our mind has a tendency to make up a lot of stories. And this is where communication starts to break down. When you come to conclusions, when you make assumptions, when you tell yourself what's going on without stopping to really truly take inventory of the facts, you can get confused into what your mind is making up or projecting or telling you or anticipating versus what is actually happening in a situation. So here are some questions to ask yourself whenever you start to run into conflict. Start in this beginning spot. What are the facts? What do I know about myself? Who do I know myself to be? Who do I know the other person to be? And these two questions come from a perspective that I bring through in my personal life, and I also bring through a lot of my teachings, that we are wholeness, that we actually are whole, complete beings trying to figure out how to express ourselves more fully outwardly in this world. And if you don't know who you are, on a spiritual level, on an internal level, then you can easily be persuaded into second guessing yourself, doubting yourself, or thinking that you have to defend a position that you may not actually have to defend, and that you can bring more of your full self into the equation. So if someone says a comment, or let's take something that can happen in business. Perhaps they're very interested in getting started with what it is that you have to offer. You have a one-on-one conversation with them. Everything seems to be clicking. And then all of a sudden, they're not returning your phone calls. They're not finishing the sign up, even though they said, I'm going to go do that this afternoon. They're not finishing whatever that next action step is. In those moments, you can start to doubt who you are. You can start to try to, we don't typically talk about our motivations this way, but if you strip it down, this is really what starts to happen. You could begin to feel prompted to try to manipulate the situation. Say, oh, well, maybe if I send her this message, that'll help to get her back online. Or maybe if I reach out to this person and get them going, then maybe they'll say something to somebody else. Or we'll try to go around the situation instead of facing it directly straight on. So a great question to ask yourself in these moments when you start to doubt yourself or start to get confused. We're going to talk about confusion too. But when you start to get confused about why this other person isn't taking action or why things might be delayed, take time to say, who do you know yourself to be? I know myself to be someone who's very compassionate and caring and have a genuine interest in people getting what they want. That is what I know about myself. So if someone confuses my words or actions and say, you just seem like, this has not happened, but just saying, for example, you just seem like you're all about the sell and all you care about is money. Well, then that's an opportunity for me to check in with myself. Do I only care about the money? Is that where my focus is? Or am I truly taking in the wholeness of this person, the opportunity that lies on the other side if they were to take this action? And you can do that self-check-in. So even if accusations or misrepresentations or misinterpretations happen of your words or your actions, you come back to this starting point. And again, this goes for our personal relationships, it goes for business, potential business, doing business with other companies. All of this comes down to, all of this is applicable. Who do I know myself to be? If you know that you're not a pushy salesperson, then you can rest in that knowingness. Okay, perhaps I could have used different words, had a different approach. You can start to navigate the situation a little bit more truthfully, but get into touch with who you know yourself to be. Who do you know you are, regardless of how you've been misunderstood or what things other people might be projecting, or, just other people's lack of action. It can feel really personal. Like, why haven't you signed up for my Patreon yet? You said you were going to do it. Did I do something wrong in talking about it? Did I do something wrong in setting it up so that it's not clear whenever you get to the page? And then the other side of that is, who do I know this other person to be? Do I know them to be the character that's showing up that isn't communicating well, or do I know them to be a caring, compassionate person also? What more can you bring to the table? I find that the majority of communication conflicts don't necessarily come from over communication, but typically come from under communication. We start to assume, we start to project. And when I say these words, assumptions, project, manipulation, again, our conscious mind listening to this, I mean, even my conscious mind is like, Crissy, this is not relatable, but it is, because if you really stop to think about and pay attention to what is happening in these conflicting situations, you're going to find there's some level of projection, some kind of assumption that's being made, and something that's not being said. And a lot of times we have reactions because of what's not being said, even more so than what is being said. Like if someone says, hey, this is something that happens at my house a lot, or not a lot, but from time to time, to be like, hey, you missed a spot washing this dish. Okay, I could get all defensive and be like, but look at all the other hundreds of dishes that are in the cabinet that are spotless and clean. Or I can just realize that me overlooking one thing doesn't wipe out the fact that I've done all these other things. So this is where projection can start to happen. We can start to get defensive when there's nothing that actually needs to be defended. And we can take a step back to get back in touch with it, to get back in touch with the wholeness. Hey, Renee, I see that you just joined us, and I just wanted to say welcome to the presentation. And I'm glad that you could be here for it. Okay, so who do you know yourself to be? Who do you know the other person to be? And this is a great rule of thumb, is to err on the side of honesty. So if you are feeling like you're getting attacked because you overlooked one thing, and I know I used a personal example instead of a business example, it's just what came to my mind. If you do feel like you're getting attacked, if you do feel like they are seeing you from an incomplete perspective, then err on the side of honesty to say, I know you to be, right? We're going to talk about that in just a minute. I know you to be someone who's very kind, compassionate, understanding, and supportive. When you said this, it didn't feel that way. Can you help me to understand what your comment meant? So erring on the side of honesty to say, hey, when you said that, it sounded like you were thinking that I was being pushy or salesy. And if I'm coming across that way, I just want to clear the air with that right now. So whatever it is that you're holding back on the inside, I'm going to encourage you to start to say it on the outside. Give a chance of what you have going on that's not being said to get out there, to get an opportunity for that more to be brought to the table. And then again, stick to truth, not assumptions. When you start to really take a look at your communications and the stories, the narratives that are going through your mind about how a certain scenario has played out, you'll start to see where you're sticking to assumptions. Do you know that to be true? Do you know that that's what they meant by it? Do you know that that's where they're coming from? Or did it just sound like it because of their tone of voice? Did it just feel like it because of the words that they chose? And this is where, again, communication usually starts to break down and has the opportunity to get a little bit more full and complete. Is this making sense? Zoom presentations are tough for me because I'm not right there feeling everybody. Okay, whoops, went too fast there. So effective communication is not just knowing what words to say, it is also listening. And that's where this can really start to bring out more of the conversation. It's not just my experience and this is what's happening. It's sharing, this is my experience. Help me to understand what your experience is. Help me to understand what I'm not seeing. Help me to see where I've dropped the ball. Because if you're having what I call a splintered off experience, like you're having just an aspect of this person that's incongruent with the wholeness that you know about them, then this is a great time to open up that door to listen to what it is that they have to say. A lot of times we're so focused on communicating what it is that we want to say and so focused on being understood ourselves that we can just bypass the whole listening process and miss some really, really valuable and powerful information. Usually that's driven because of our assumptions about what they're going to say and how they're going to say it. But if you just open yourself up to approaching it in that way, then you can understand it's not just about what you say, it's also about what you hear the other person say. Okay, so communication key number 2, remind them who they are. Whoever it is that you're dealing with, Remind them who they are. Now, this is really powerful when we think about sales conversations as well. Effective sales is effective communication. Sales is communication, is what it is. It's the same exact thing. So if you go back and you take that first principle of start with the facts, when you are approaching to offer something, to put a service or a good out there into the world, start with all the facts. Think about who you know yourself to be. Think about who you know your potential customer to be. Okay, Carlene says she's got to go in a minute. No problem at all. Thank you for being here while you can, Carlene.
And it's being recorded, so she can just watch
Perfect.
the second half. So don't worry about that.
Perfect. Okay. So start with all the facts. Remind them who they are. When you are selling to a specific audience, which is something that I highly recommend everybody choose a specific audience that they gear all of their marketing towards. That doesn't mean that you only do business with this particular group of people. It just means that you focus the energy, the words that you put out there to communicate about your business to this specific group of people. Remind them who they are. The top reason that people say no is because they don't trust themselves to get the results that you are saying is possible. So we're all kind of familiar with that know, like, and trust factor. Well, if they know you and they like you and they trust you and they're still not buying from you, chances are they don't trust themselves. They don't trust themselves to show up. They don't trust themselves to follow through. They don't trust themselves to stick to the plan. They don't trust themselves to be able to build a business the way that you have. So your job is to remind them who they are, what they're capable of, and to break them out of that little splintered off story that they have of themselves or perception that they have of themselves, and welcome in the wholeness of who they are. So things to ask yourself: remind them who they are. Speak into them who you know them to be, and speak into them what is possible. So often we fail to communicate fully because we are not taking time to remind the other person who we know them to be and what is possible for them. So one of the things that I do, especially in the coaching side of my practice, I pour belief into individuals. I tell you constantly how equipped you are, how made for the journey you are, how capable you are for moving forward. And I remind people their wholeness. And I do this in my interpersonal relationships too. Your tone of voice made you sound like you were being super aggressive right now, but I know you to be super compassionate, super supportive, super caring. So how can this aggressiveness express that? Or maybe I'll come to my own conclusion when I just approach it from that direction. I know you to be super supportive, super caring, and super compassionate. So perhaps this aggression that I'm feeling from you is just your passion caught up with your fears about what might happen next. Speak into them who you know them to be. You're someone who does the right thing. You're someone who shows up. You're someone who cares about your health. You're someone who is not going to stick your head in the sand when it comes to the finances within your business. You do business differently. You stay on top of things. You speak into them who you know them to be and what you know is possible for them, and it will help them to remember who they are and allow them to bring that fullness to the table. Y'all will hear me say that a lot. I'll talk about other people. I'm like, not us. We do things a lot more thoughtful and compassionately. But there's other people that overlook people and just make assumptions and do all these projections. Those people, right? So I'm constantly looking to see how can I pull more of the awesomeness that I know that's within Debbie to the forefront. How can I pull that out of Tammy? I mean, you ladies are bringing it all the time, but I want to find that one little way that I can just bring it back up to the surface, right? I really like this graphic. I don't even remember making it, but I'm glad that I did. And I'm glad that it was in the presentation. Communicating logic without heart or heart without logic doesn't honor the full you. So if you are facts, here are all the great things about essential oils and all the different mazillion scientific facts that back it up, it doesn't honor the fullness of how when you put those drops into your drink, you were able to relax for the first time in 43 years. You know what I mean? When you bridge that gap and you bring the logic with the heart, when you bring the facts with the compassion, when you bring the wonderful thing that you have to sell along with the amazing person who's there to deliver it, now you're bringing a fuller story. Now you're communicating more fully about your good, your service, your value, what it is that you're bringing to the table. So many business owners get caught up in thinking the thing that holds the value is the good or the offer, the thing that you're doing for somebody else. It's not. It's the heart that you bring to it. So if you're just focused on one or the other, you're going to miss out on the fullness of you. Okay. And then the third key to effective communication is to honor the full story. Just like we were introducing the logic with the heart, we have to bring the full story of who you are, who the other people are, and how do we do this? Well, one easy little tip to remember is that everyone's tuned into the same station, WIIFM. What's in it for me? Everybody is tuned into listening to everything. Even you right now, I love you and I don't take this personal, but as you're listening, you're thinking, what's she going to say that has to do with me? What's she going to say that's going to make a difference in my life, right? It's just how we are. We're programmed that way. We're divinely designed to take care of us, our life. We are the center, we're the center main character everywhere that we go. So it is an innate survival tool within us that is tuned into what's in it for me. So when you are communicating outwardly, be it a good, a service, or just talking about who you are, remember those listening to you are only caring about you to find out what's in it for them. And it doesn't mean they're not capable of caring beyond that. But we're talking primal. We're talking the subconscious mind. We're talking about default programming and systems that are in place within yourself just to keep you moving forward day in, day out. So we're not talking about everything that goes on up here in the conscious mind. We're digging down underneath those layers. So everybody's tuned into what's in it for me. Then start your communications letting them know this is what's in it for you. Instead of, this is all of me, this is all of my background, this is everything that I'm going to benefit from by you making this next move. They don't care about your star rank diamond purple, leadership goal. They don't care about that. They care about what results are in it for them. And if you help them to see how what you're bringing to the table, or how, if a communication got derailed, how your intentions were to bring them to that place of their results of what's in it for them, you're going to have a much easier time leading them back into the conversation, getting to the full story and finding that resolution. 3 things that you can always keep in mind. It doesn't matter if you're dealing with a 2-year-old or an 82-year-old. I see you. I hear you. You matter to me. Those 3 statements are some of the most powerful words that you can ever say to anybody. You don't even have to say them out loud. You can just say them internally. If you're having conflict with another person, take time to make sure you say, I see you. I see that you're frustrated with this. I hear that you thought things were going to go a different way. And your peace of mind matters to me so much. Now let's get started figuring out what the problem is, or let's get started finding the resolution. If you are finding frustration, agitation, the other person's not being receptive, go to this key. Chances are you haven't effectively communicated outwardly that you see them, you hear them, and you matter to me, and that they matter to you. And again, this could happen. I remember, driving on a road trip by myself with a 2-year-old in a car and my daughter being upset in the back seat. Nothing I can do. I can't make the trip go faster. I can't change things up, but I can say, baby, I hear you. I see that you're very frustrated back there. I hear that you're uncomfortable in your seat, and it really matters to me that we get you in a very comfortable place. Just hang on with me. We're going to do the best we can. I'm trying to find somewhere to stop, or whatever the thing is, right? So just by acknowledging that, it allows people to put their defenses down. It lets them know they don't have to fight so hard for their survival. They got somebody else that's advocating for them. And another great thing to remember, along with the what's in it for me, seeing them, hearing them, know that they matter, is that confusion. Confusion, I say, is a sign of an illusion. If you're confused over, why would she ever say that? Why would he ever do that? Why would she respond that way? Why would she comment on my post that way? If you find yourself saying, that WTH, what the heck's going on here? Then that is a sign of an illusion, meaning the other person is caught up in illusion that's not quite exactly the full picture about you and what you have going on, or you are caught up in an illusion about how you're perceiving them. And it's a great time to go back through these steps and just remember to remind yourself who you are, right? Especially if something slanderous gets thrown your way. And I've had extremely slanderous things said about me to my face, behind my back, through the business grapevine. I mean, you don't stay in business for 15 years in a small town without hearing something kind of come back around. So go back through this. Remember who you are, remember who they are, and then find the point that everything starts to get a little confusing. I know myself to be a caring, compassionate person. I know you to be a caring, compassionate person. When you said what you said, or I got this email from you, I was a little confused about that. Can you help me to understand? Where were you coming from? How can I better understand what's going on here? And then most importantly, choose the narrative. You know how all this stuff kind of runs through your mind, especially if we're talking email communication or social media communication, something where the person's not in front of you. You get whatever that communication is, you have that reaction inside of you, your wheels start spinning and defensiveness and all the explanations over how everything's just gone horribly wrong and they're not seeing this part of you, or they're not considering this or that, right? Whatever that is, all that crazy that goes on in your mind. My mind's crazy. I can only imagine what y'all's are like. My mind, it's a madhouse up here. Choose the narrative that matches the facts, not the one that goes with, but their body language was like this, and their tone of voice was like this, and they're typing in all cap letters. Set all that aside. That is just all of that physical display is not the full story. That is the part that we get confused over. So rewind yourself back. Who do I know myself to be? Who do I know this person to be? Let me remind them who I know them to be. And let's get to the fuller story, because it's either a problem with what's being said or a problem with what's not being said. And more often than not, it's the what's not being said. Because either we're assuming it, or it's obvious that you're awesome, Crissy, so why would I include that in what I have to say? Because sometimes I need to hear that I'm awesome along with the criticism that you have coming towards me, or whatever it is, right? Okay, and then my last little visual here for us, just because I'm just a sucker for lovely images. Honoring another perspective does not mean I abandon my own. And that's really, really important to remember. You can welcome in the fullness of another person's story without it taking a single ounce away from your own story, your own version of what's happening. So a lot of times we kind of close ourselves off because we think if we honor, I'm just going to take victimization because it's such an easy thing to kind of pull out. If we honor the victimizing of another person, then that means that we have to disregard our own victimization. And in truth, it doesn't take away from it at all. Whatever you've been through, whatever they've been through, there's room for everybody's story. I teach the same thing, these same kind of concepts, but I teach it from the angle of interpersonal relationships only, where it leads to more healing and understanding for conflict resolution. And I feel that that's a real big part of it, is understanding that there's enough room for everybody's story, and you don't have to abandon what's happened to you in order to hold the space for somebody else. All right. And then I just have a little, Renee says so important and amazing. Thank you, Renee. I'm glad that that hits the mark for you. So I'm just putting a little contact screen here for you. I have group support options that start at just $3 a month that you can check out on Patreon. You can go to the little bit.ly link that I made to keep it simple, bit.ly holistic support. You can check out my handcrafted holistic inspired gifts that are available in my Etsy shop at bit.ly shop holistic, and you can catch a ton of videos on YouTube. You can email me, check out my website, and I got a little link there if y'all want to download the slides. Actually, you know what I'll do? Let me copy and paste that right into the chat, and then you ladies can
well, and this
hop over
is
there and get it.
recorded, Crissy, so if they just watch the recording, which I'm going to
Perfect.
stop now.
Perfect.